Hi everyone, welcome to another broadcast hosted by Gender Spectrum. Thank you to all of you visiting us from the Gender Spectrum Lounge, and those of you who are watching and tuning in from your homes, your offices, wherever you might be, hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Adam. I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so, and I have a very, very special guest with me, but before I jump into introducing my guests, I want to go over a couple of announcements, some logistic housekeeping task, if you will. So I do want to let everyone know that during the next our few moments together, that there is a Q&A feature. So if you scroll, I think somewhere to the left side of your screen, there might be a Q&A box, and you could click that at any time, submit questions to us, and towards the latter part, we'll try to answer some of your questions. I also do want to point out that this broadcast is brought to you by the Gender Spectrum Lounge. If you go to the showcase, that link is genderspectrum.org/lounge. And it's our online community. It's for teens, it's for parents and caregivers, for professionals and providers who are working with gender expansive youth. And it really does provide an online safe space for you to connect with one another, hear about one another's experiences, get resources, share articles, all sorts of amazing things. So check it out, sign up if you haven't already, it's free to everyone. And then also don't forget that Gender Spectrum offers tons of resources on our website, so you can visit that at genderspectrum.org and then visit the resources section. If you are ever interested in partnering or collaborating around future broadcasts or programmings for the lounge, please feel free to shoot us an email at lounge@genderspectrum.org, and we would be so excited to get those emails, and we'll definitely respond to you. Almost at the end of my announcements, one more thing I want to put out there is Gender Spectrum also has a YouTube channel. That would be youtube.com/genderspectrum, and there you can find all sorts of short and longer podcasts, things you might share in your classroom, things you might share with your friends and family. Maybe you're doing a youth support group and you might want to show one of our broadcasts and then do a discussion afterwards. So, we're building these resources all the time, new programming all the time, so definitely check that out as well. And then just a disclosure for our conversation here. We are going to be talking about body parts, hormones. This broadcast is really meant for teens out there to hear from another teenager. And so with all that in mind, we are definitely going to keep it very PG, but kind of just full disclosure that if you hear kind of terminology around body parts, hormones, whatnot, it's all because it's going to be very useful for our conversation. And without further ado, I think I want to move forward and start to introduce our guest tonight. I have with me Matthew, who is a member of the Gender Spectrum Youth Council. The Youth Council is a national program that features and recruits young leaders from all over the country. Matthew happens to represent the state of Texas, but we have members from Michigan, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, just all parts of the US. And we recruit in the fall around August. So if you're interested in ever joining the Youth Council, please keep a lookout for that message as well. So Matthew, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm 18 years old. I've been on this council since about September now. I live in Fort Worth, Texas, and right now I've been on testosterone for about 8 months and 16 days. I've been out as transgender for about 3 years, and I'm really looking forward to telling you guys all about it.
Awesome. And have you ever even opened up publicly about this experience, this journey before?
I am out publicly in my school. I'm out with my family. I've never done anything this public where anybody, I guess, on the internet could see me talking about this. So this is a first for me. But definitely I am a very open person with my gender, with my transition, and with my hormone status and everything like that. So it's just on a bigger scale this time.
Well, thank you so much for your willingness to do this. It really, really is a privilege to be in this conversation with you, and just knowing that you could you're probably impacting a lot of people out there, not just youth themselves, but their family members, people who are coming to this topic, this quote unquote issue, if you will, of gender for the first time. And I just think you would be such a great spokesperson for this topic. So again, thank you for taking this time and sharing it with me and with everyone else out there. So I'm going to go ahead and walk us through a few questions that I've prepared, and yeah, just however you want to respond to them. But I think I want to start from a beginning. And when I say a beginning, I want to ask you about your coming out story. How did you come out to your parents? How did they respond? Anything you feel comfortable opening up about that?
Yeah, so in a sense, I almost came out accidentally. I was out with my family as identifying as a female lesbian, and that was kind of just where I was in my life. And one day I was just talking to a friend, and I was really just explaining that I wasn't very happy in my life due to things with having a poor self-body image. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself, and I wasn't really feeling like I was happy at all. And they showed me this video on YouTube of a trans person, and I saw it and I thought that kind of makes a lot of sense. So I went and I was on my own, and I had been researching, I was just kind of Googling and everything like that. And I said, you know what, that's what it is. I am trans. That makes a lot of sense. That would explain everything about my life, about why I've always felt the way I do about myself, why I've never really felt comfortable in my skin, why I've had such a lot of really bad body image and self-confidence since puberty. And I just had started to kind of live with that thought in my head. I didn't really tell anybody. I was kind of nervous about telling people, and I didn't think I had to transition or come out or anything. And then one day I was on YouTube watching a video, and my dad came in my room, and I kind of freaked out. I felt like I was almost doing something I shouldn't be for some reason. So I closed my computer as fast as I could, and I kind of freaked out, and I moved my computer to the side. He looked at me real funny. He said, well, what were you just doing? And I told him, it's fine. I was just watching a video on YouTube. He said, well, why can't I see what you were doing? And I was really like almost ashamed, because I think I just was afraid of the reaction I might get. And he was just kept pressuring me, like, what were you doing? Like, I'm sure he was just worried that I was probably doing something I shouldn't be. And all at once, in a really fast blurb, I said, I was watching a trans guy because I think I'm trans. And he goes, what? He did not understand at all what I just said. And I told him very kind of like angrily in a huff, I said, I think I'm a boy. And he just kind of left the room. And then like the next day, my mom, she looked at me and she said, so Matt, do you want to go see your counselor? And the next day, because I had been going to a counselor, and I went to her and we talked a lot, and I kind of then the next day more officially approached my parents and told them, you know, I identify as male. I feel that that's where I am in my life. I feel like identifying as male, being called he and him, is something that I want to do. I think it's who I am, and I would really love your support if you would let me try and explore that part of myself. And that's how I came out to my parents.
I would ask you a follow-up question to that, because I think there are sometimes parents might automatically jump to, hey, maybe you need to seek therapy, maybe you need to talk to a counselor, shortly after their child maybe comes out as being trans or some other gender expansive identity, right? And sometimes it has negative connotations, sometimes not. Sometimes it's really positive too. And so I guess my follow-up question is, did you take it in a negative way? I recognize that you were already kind of speaking with your counselor, so maybe it didn't feel like it didn't have that negative connotation to it. And then still to that point, like, was there something you took away from that 24-hour period where you did bring this up with your counselor? Because if you've been seeing that person, then maybe this is some big news that you wanted to open up about. And I wonder if there was anything that like stuck with you from that conversation with your counselor.
Well, for me, the idea of going to a therapy session right after I told my dad that, I wasn't surprised at all. And for me, it didn't have any sort of like, oh my God, this is a problem sort of a sense. It was, maybe you need to talk to somebody about this, just because my parents, they know that therapy is more of, we can't really talk to you about it, maybe just because we don't understand or because we're not on the same level of understanding. So let's bring in somebody who might be closer to your level. And that's what I thought of it more as. It's just, you know, I had said this all kind of in a huff, really fast, not really like thought out or anything. So I think for them, it was just, let's stop and let's move a little bit slower. And so talking with her, nothing, I can't really tell you anything about that session that I can remember, in all honesty. If anything, it's just going in there thinking, you know, I don't know, is it like the right time to come out? Is this even what I am? Is it that I'm just a really masculine female? Is it that I just think that being called him is cool or something? You know, maybe just having a little bit of questions about the thoughts I had about identifying as male. And then talking with her about it, and her just kind of, you know, reassuring me, because she had been seeing me for a few years, that she just kind of reminded me, I am a person who knows myself. I do know a lot more about myself than what most teenagers would at that age. And that if I thought that this was the right path for me, that I should go ahead and try to talk to my parents about pursuing it.
That's awesome. It really is amazing and great to hear like these positive, affirming experiences when young people go to a professional provider, a mental health provider, a counselor, a therapist, who can be affirming. And I loved just what you said. I mean, you said you couldn't recall, but it sounds like she said you know who you are as your own person, and that's really, really powerful. So kudos to her. Well, maybe I can fast forward us a little bit in your experience, in your journey and story. And so how did you go from, all right, you came out, and you came out even in a more, you know, affirmative way. And then how did you get to this point of, you know, am I just a masculine female, or am I this or that? And then how did you get to this point of knowing like I wanted to start hormones?
I had, after I came out, I told my mom right out, I was like, I want to go buy some guy clothes, because a lot of the clothes I had, though they were kind of masculine, they were very like close to my skin. They were very still in the female fashion sort of area. So I wanted to actually go like into a men's department and buy myself some pants and feel good about myself. And it was just little things like that where I began to transition socially. I talked to my friends and tried to get them to start using the male pronouns, and and I had been going by like a nickname at that point in my life, really. And I just sort of began to socially transition with my family. I just explored myself as a person and as a man, and I saw, you know, I really love that when I wear men's pants, I feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable in my skin when I am wearing a binder and I'm wearing my clothes and I have my hair cut short, and it all just felt and made me feel so much more like I was in my own skin and I wasn't walking around in somebody that I wasn't. And after kind of being in that point for a little while, I started to feel almost stuck. I had socially transitioned probably fully by the end of my sophomore year in high school. And my junior year, I just kind of felt like I was dragging my feet. Like I was just not where I really wanted to be. I wasn't moving forward. It was all just kind of there still. So I had brought it up to my mom a couple of times just in passing, said, you know, a lot of trans people, they start hormone replacement therapy and it's supposed to be really great. It like changes the chemistry of your body, so that way you kind of present physically more masculine or more feminine depending on the hormone you take. And that was really all. I just said it was cool, I want it, please. And then after a little while, my mom had said that her and my dad were looking into things, but that what they had found was clinics that were looking for people in crisis, and they didn't think that I fit that criteria. And that was really disheartening when I first heard that. But then one day my mom and I were talking, and she said, there's this clinic that we think they'll take you. We want you to go and, you know, see about maybe just starting you on testosterone. And I said, that went from 0 to 100, but okay. And I went with it. So it was a lot of, I always knew that I wanted the testosterone. And then once my mom and my dad kind of found the place, and I think it probably come to a point where they also thought that it was going to help me in becoming who I am and help me in transitioning. I think that that's when they really like found the place and they said, let's do this.
Okay. And for the record, did you ultimately stick with this clinic?
Yes, I did. I did ultimately.
And what was the name of the clinic? And what was the name of the clinic? Just so that, you know, people in Texas are curious and wondering.
I go through a clinic in Cook's Children's Hospital in Dallas, Texas. It's a clinic called Genesis. If you go on the children's website and you go under endocrinology, it's right under there. The lead Dr. Lopez, she runs the Genesis clinic, and it's all about trying to bring gender affirming therapy to teens that they can. They've had lots of different cases and everything on there. And when I actually looked them up after I saw them and everything, it's a really great program from what I read. And then later, as I experienced it, I fell in love with it, and I'm still there with them. And hopefully I'll be able to stay with them a little longer. I think it's like 22. I have to stop seeing them, because after that, I think that's where their like youth technically cuts off, because it is a children's hospital.
Got it. But still a valuable resource. So thanks for sharing the name of that clinic. Okay. You'll notice a theme here. I'm going to keep bringing us a little bit further along in your journey. So, all right, now we came out. Now we talked to parents about starting hormones. What were the next steps, essentially? Like, what were the steps of the process, the bureaucracy? I mean, is it as easy as just going to a doctor and saying, hey, I want to start hormones, or is there more to it? I think you're laughing because there's more to it.
There's so much more to this. Oh my gosh. I wish I could describe to you how easy I thought it would be and how easy it's not. What it was I was told that first I had to have a psychiatric evaluation just to show that I knew I had support in my family and in my home, just to make sure I was aware. They weren't like trying to see, am I trans enough? Am I really trans? Like, is this a thing? Is this a phase? They were more looking to just see, like, do I have the support system and the love and the acceptance around me and the emotional stability to handle this huge change that could happen in my life potentially. So the first thing we had to do was, it's probably about 100 something pages long. It's this questionnaire that just talks about, it asked me about my family life, and asked me about my personal life. Am I bullied in school? If I am, how does that affect me? Do I have any sort of eating disorders? How are my parents? Do my parents treat me well? Do my parents provide a healthy, safe environment? Lots of different questions like that we're all just kind of getting a baseline. And then once I filled out that questionnaire, there was this huge psychiatric appointment I had to go to. I had to go see the children's, I can't remember her name. I had to go see the children's psychiatrist. I really wish I knew her name, because I was in that office for 7 hours during this appointment. And that's what it is. It's just this huge, long appointment that they make. Not all clinics do it. I'm sure that that's just what the children's is. And I think it's just because one visit in 7 hours, you can get into some really deep emotional things in 7 hours. And I remember one of the things I did, she had me drawing pictures because she is a children's psychiatrist, of course. So I don't know if maybe that's just what they do for everybody, or if it was just, why not? But one of the things I was asked, is draw what I would like to look like, draw what I do look like, and, draw my family, and just like drawing all these different pictures and then kind of explaining it to them. And I remember so distinctly that I drew a picture of what I wanted to look like. And I looked really good. Like, my drawing skills were poor, but the image in my head was really great. And then I drew what I actually looked like, and I was telling her, I was like, yeah, well, the lips are too big, and like my ears are funky or whatever, and like my face isn't that masculine, and the bit basic teenagers, like my nose isn't straight enough, sort of things. So just different things like that. And she thought it was kind of hilarious the way I was just like, my ear looked like it's 2 centimeters shorter than the other one. Just, I don't know, little picky things that I did. And then I talked with a social worker in that same appointment, just asking, what are my parents like? Do I think my parents are supportive of this? Like, what are the feelings I get from where my parents stand with this versus where I stand? Do I think that this is something my parents would kind of not be doing? Maybe just because they were hesitant or that they felt pressured to do this and things like that. And it was such a long appointment. I could talk about that appointment for days. But after that whole appointment, the psychiatrist said, okay, we have your case and we have it all in this little file. And every 2 weeks, the medical people, the endocrinologists, look at the cases and they decide, if they'll take you on and which one of the doctors will take you. And thankfully, the week I had gone was one of the weeks where they were doing evaluations. So I was really excited to see if this would like go a little faster. And then about 2 weeks after that, I got a call that said Lopez was going to go ahead and take my case, and I was going to have an appointment at the endocrinology department. And from there, they would discuss with me my options of hormone replacement therapy. And then, I don't know, should I keep going about this like whole process? Because I feel like this is really long.
Well, it's very, very, it highlights that there's a lot of steps that need to happen. And I'm glad you're proving that point, right? That there's a social worker, there's a psychologist, there's a team of doctors. So it's not just you and your parents go to the doctor one day and say, hey, you know, give me a shot of testosterone, right? If only it were that easy. And it's not to say that again, another point that you brought up, Matt, was that different states, different hospitals will have different rules. So Matt, that you are really just sharing about your experience here out in Texas, but it might be different in California, it might be different out in Nebraska, right? So it's still important that those who are interested, families and youth who are interested, you know, that you still do your homework and talk to the right organizations or people about accessing what the steps are. So no, you bring us to another good place, another good point of, I'm curious to know about your sense of the timeline. Like, did you feel like did you want things to move faster? Or were they moving too slow? Was it just the perfect pace? And like, what were you just thinking about when all of this was happening, when they were calling you in for an appointment, when essentially, 2 or 4 weeks later, they're saying like, we'll see you. And so, yeah, what was going through your mind in terms of the timeline?
As far as the timeline goes, so I had filled out that 100-page packet roughly like maybe January or February of 2015. I had seen the psychiatrist probably in about March. And so there was like a good chunk of time between having filled that out and then seeing her. I kind of felt like, okay, we're going to keep going. This is going to keep happening. My parents think I'm moving forward at this point, but I'm still feeling a little stuck. And then it was about I was told I had to go into the endocrinology office, but that my appointment wasn't going to be until May. So here I was sitting like late March, early April, thinking I have another month. I gotta wait here and I gotta do this. And it was definitely taxing. I was kind of worried. I was really worried that for some reason maybe I was going to go into this office and they were going to say, LOLs, you've been pranked or something. I don't know. Like that's just where my mind went immediately. I just was so nervous, but at the same time I was really excited because I thought there is this chance. It's there. It's staring me in the face. I was frustrated because it was there and yet really far away, because a month to a teenager, it's years. It's just years. And then when I actually got to the appointment, from the moment I stepped into the endocrinology office and then forward, everything moved 20 million times faster than I thought it was going to. It was from that point on, gas got put in the tank and they just went. It got a little scary. It was really exciting. And I will forever know that the only reason I didn't cry on that appointment out of happiness was because I didn't know what was happening for half of it, because it was all just going past me. That was the only thing. I didn't have time. It just kept going. I didn't have time to stop and be happy and cry. But yeah, it was.
Was this like you felt like it was long, this waves were happening. They were just all of a sudden when it did, things happened really, really quickly. And again, this is your experience. What happened to you, and the timelines are other different for other people as well, right? Okay, let's talk about this then. Your first kind of the first day you're starting testosterone. What was happening? What was the exam like? What were the steps the doctor was taking? Was it injection? Was it oral patch? Was it something else? Let us know.
So once I got into the actual appointment, the first thing that happened was we signed a bunch of papers that said, really, I understand that hormone replacement therapy is considered experimental. And I didn't know that when I first walked in. I had done a lot of Googling, but I had never seen anything that said hormone replacement therapy is considered an experimental thing. I don't know if that's something that Texas has deemed it experimental or if that's a national FDA thing. I don't know. But it was basically like just saying, you know, this could possibly affect your fertility. This could affect your body. Some things may be reversible. Some things may not be reversible. There's a chance that we might not know what happened to you. Are you willing to do this? And I said, yes, absolutely, please. I would love some chest hair, anything. But I signed the papers and so did my mom and everything. And they were just kind of confirming with us that I understood what was happening when I was going to take the T. I just kind of nodded my head. I was getting real bored with this because a lot of what they were saying is what I read online, and I felt like I kind of already knew what was going on. My mom was learning a little bit, but I had sat in the car ride telling her everything I knew about testosterone, so I'm sure she got real bored too. And I remember then my doctor comes in the office and she's talking to me and she's telling me a little bit more about what it's like to be on testosterone, about like what a timeline would look like, saying you might experience more pubic hair, you might experience more hair growth on your legs and in your body, your voice will deepen, you may stop menstrual cycles, you may have a voice lower, you may grow facial hair, you may not grow facial hair. I asked if I'd get taller because that was also a really big goal I had, and I didn't read anything that testosterone could make you taller, so I thought I'd ask. And sadly, they said like I could grow an inch, maybe 2. I won't have any growth spurts on testosterone. That was a little saddening, but everything else made me really happy, so I didn't care. So then, you know, she's just kind of looking at me. She's like, wow, you look like you're like really ready for this. And I said, yes, I am. Please, I'm ready. And the next thing she said was, okay, so there's a script for testosterone down for you in the pharmacy. Go down there, pick it up, and come back up. We're going to have a nurse show you how to inject yourself. I said, what? Because I had no clue what was going to happen. I was very almost confused. I wasn't told. I had researched and I had found articles that said typically there's like some sort of baseline blood work that gets done, or that there's a basic physical that was going to get done. And I had assumed that that's really what I was there for, was for them to get an understanding of where I already was naturally, and then I might get testosterone later. But no, they just went. I said, okay, let's do this. Like, okay. And I got the testosterone, and the nurse showed me how to pull it up in these needles. And testosterone is considered a very, very thick injection. And I learned later, a lot of people, the way they inject testosterone is they draw it up with an 18 gauge syringe, like this giant syringe. And then just because it's really thick and it's easier to draw with a thicker needle, it's a needle with a wider hole. And then they put on a different tip that's a smaller needle. That way it doesn't hurt so much when you inject yourself in the different sites. What my clinic did, which was a little different, was they had me using insulin syringes, which are these really tiny, tiny needles. And I thought, maybe it's because they're a children's clinic or something. And I did ask her about that later. And she said, basically, it does take longer, but you don't have to change out needles. So I have to buy less needles. I don't have to buy the different syringes and everything. I can buy these. It's a box of 100 is about $35 cash. So it's a lot cheaper than, I think, it's like 10 needles and syringes, the 18 gauge, and then the smaller 22 gauge. Altogether ends up being like $10 or $15. So me getting hundreds of them for like $30 was a real big deal. And I don't care, for me personally, if I have to sit there for an extra 2 minutes drawing it up out of the syringe. That didn't bother me, that I would take time taking my testosterone. It was like me time every Friday. So that's pretty much how I felt about that. And she showed me, I did inject it, and she just talked to me about how they will be increasing my dose slowly. They gave me a very small dose. They said this is definitely what not your average 17-year-old male, which I was 17 at the time, would have in their body. We're going to kind of try to progress you in how much testosterone you're taking and when. So I started out at 13 cc, which is 0.13 ml of testosterone every other week. And then from there, I've been moving up. I now take 0.35, cc, so that's 0.35 milliliters of testosterone every Friday. And so that's that. That's my experience with that.
Yeah. So a few lessons there, that it is injection, that you're injecting, and then that there is this gradation, that it's going to be something you're going to build up to, because it's this new, well, not new, because we all have different levels of estrogen and testosterone, but it is still new in a sense that there's more of it, right? So we don't want to shock your system and just give you this huge old dose. Now you're talking about injections, and then I wanted to know, like, what are the options of the different injection sites? What options were told to you? What research have you done that it's better to inject here than there? Just to let people know who are planning, expecting this for their future of your personal tips and preferences.
So as far as like with the injections, I was told by the nurse I can inject into like fatty but muscly tissue in a way. It was the inner parts of my thighs, my stomach, and sort of the outer parts of my bicep. A little bit closer up to my shoulder is where I should inject, just because I wouldn't be injecting it directly into a muscle. But there was also some fat there, but not too much that it might disrupt the absorption of the hormone. And personally, I inject into my stomach. When I got the first shot, that's the spot I picked. That's kind of just where I've kept it. I know personally a lot of trans men do it on the inner part of their thigh. I've done that a couple of times. I think it's more painful personally than in my stomach. So I picked my stomach. I tried to do my arm because I thought that would be like cool to be able to like inject it into my arm. But it's hard because like you have to try and pinch your skin and then like push. It's just too hard and complicated. I was not gonna make this any harder on myself. So that's pretty much that as far as just injecting it. I was always told like just be really careful that I'm not, whenever I'm injecting it, like plunging the syringe into my stomach, just kind of putting the needle in and keeping it just up against my skin rather than trying to push down on it, because otherwise I could probably hurt myself or it was gonna really hurt coming out. There is, with the testosterone that I use, just because of, I don't know, the chemical compound or something, because of the way it's manufactured, there is almost a burning sensation, and they said that that was normal. Like they told me to expect that, but it's not like a burning. It's almost like if you had icy hot cream like underneath your skin is how I describe it. And I thought that was one of the other reasons I played around with the different injection sites, was just to see, is this just because it's in my stomach? Is it different on my leg or my arm? I think feel it the most in my stomach, but it's still, like I said, it's definitely the least painful and least complicated injecting into my stomach. But yeah, that's what I know about injecting my own testosterone.
Yeah, I just have a couple more questions and ideas too, if you tuned in a little bit later, that you can submit questions live right now. If you click on the Q&A box, I think somewhere top or left side of your screen, you could submit a question and we'd be happy to, and Matt would be open to answering some questions as well. So, well, you're 18 now, and this before you were 18, and it sounds like you had a lot of family support, which is awesome. My question maybe is, what advice might you have if, some youth aren't 18 yet, they really want this for themselves, and if you have any advice on what they might still do if they haven't reached their age of majority yet?
In all honesty, I will tell you to wait until you're 18, just because if you don't have the support with you when you're not 18, then it's going to be really hard, because you will have this amazing change in your life. But change like freaks people out. I don't care who you are. Change is freaky. And if you're going through all of this and, it might be nice to have a best friend or something, but if you don't have somebody that is, I think, part of your family and part of the people who love and support you, then, well, obviously you don't have the support, but it just can be really detrimental, especially if you're almost in a way trying to get it behind their back. It can cause all kinds of problems, I think, between you and those people who are your family and who are, maybe they're trying and they're just not there yet. I know when I came out at like 16 years old, there's no way I would have thought my mom and dad were going to let me on testosterone in this house, just because I one time like put on a drag beard and I told them, I was like, this is so cool. I love this. I want facial hair. And they freaked out. They thought it was kind of weird. They thought it was not a good idea. They said, please don't ever do this again. Please don't ever do that in public. And, they kind of freaked out. So instantly there, I never thought I'd be able to start a hormone replacement therapy where I'm changing the components of my body and I'm, going to physically present differently from that point on. And I thought I was probably gonna have to do it after I got out of the house, after I got off my parents' insurance and whenever I could do this on my own. And there I was a year later, and I had their full support and I had their backing, and they were right there with me, and they have been nothing but supportive since then. So just understand that maybe you're not 18 yet, and maybe they don't fully, they're just not at where you are in your transition. You're in point C of your transition, and they're still back at like A, or you're in point M and they're still at B. It's just that they haven't caught up to you. And unfortunately, it can be a waiting game. I also just recommend trying to wait it out. There are foods you can eat that can naturally up your testosterone levels, like broccoli and spinach and different things like that. Google those. Maybe just try to do that as best as you can. Working out can help increase your testosterone naturally. Just don't do anything illegal, especially with getting testosterone. I know of ways that you can get it without prescriptions and everything, but that's so dangerous. You're not a medical professional, and you don't know what's going to happen with your body. And if something does go wrong, you can get caught be getting an illegal prescription, and it's not a safe point from there on. And I just really tell you to be safe. Try to do what you can, but if you're not 18, you really have to wait until you can either get the support from your parents, or you can get the support from yourself and from outside sources.
Wow, that's really, really powerful and helpful information, Matt. Those are really, really good tips and advice. So thank you for sharing that. I guess at this time, I'm wondering if there are any audience members who want to submit questions. We do have a lounge group open, a forum topic. So maybe I'm actually going to pull up a question there while people are thinking about what questions they might want to ask. But here's one. So Matt, you're clearly, obviously transitioning and have started, almost a year ago now. And before that, you were also socially transitioning, right? So there's a difference between socially and physically transitioning. This question comes to, should I have top surgery before starting T? And so maybe what was your thought process there? Were you considering top surgery, other surgery, and surgery before hormones? Or what's the protocol here? Do people usually do hormone therapy before surgery, or vice versa, or whatever you can tell us about that?
The trans people that I know that it's been hormone replacement and then top surgery. Personally, just for my own sake, I would have wanted top surgery first, I almost think, because I would have been able to pass still probably with my body pre-testosterone and more with top surgery, and then move on to testosterone. However, for me, when I thought about it, my binder, eventually I did find one that worked a lot better for me, and I was able to kind of think, okay, maybe testosterone could happen first. Also knowing that my parents were much more in favor of the idea of testosterone, whereas top surgery. Then also looking into it financially, it did make more sense for me to start the testosterone first and then get top surgery. My other reason for doing what I did was because I found out that a lot of people who do top surgery that specialize in female to male, I forgot the actual word for the surgery, but the people who actually specialize it, they typically want a healthcare provider to say that you are a healthy person, that this is a healthy operation for you to have, and a mental healthcare provider to say, like, you understand that you're about to do a major change on your body that is irreversible. And in the state of Texas, with things being kind of tricky, it's always better to have documentation that says you've started hormone replacement therapy, because in the state of Texas, a lot of legal things, once you've started hormone replacement therapy, they kind of consider you trans enough to do anything. We also started the testosterone because when I went to go and look into getting my name changed, my parents were very supportive of that. They were fine with legally changing my name to Matthew. And when we looked into it, one of the things that a lawyer told us was that a lot of people, a lot of judges, especially in very conservative counties, which I do live in one, want to see that you've started somehow physically transitioning, and that there'd be like no way that if somebody saw you and like saw the the original name and like the letter on your driver's license, that they would believe that you were a female living with that name. So I went ahead and we did that. That's just my personal thing. I think that it's a good idea to start T before top surgery, my own opinion, because testosterone, you can stop taking it if you just, because I felt something change in me where I knew that testosterone was working. I knew that it was making me change inside and I loved it. So I think that having that feeling really affirmed for me that that's what this was, that I wasn't just somebody who was identifying, who didn't need to physically transition, because some people don't. And you can stop T, and some things are reversible, some things aren't, but it is able to be stopped. Top surgery, it's one procedure and then it's there for life. And I think me being 17 years old, that was a really scary thought, to have one procedure and then have a part of my body that's been there for 17 years gone. So that's just what I recommend, because it is something you can stop and you can think, this is what I want, this is not what I want, and from there move on to something more permanent like top surgery. And I have not had a bottom surgery. I've looked into it. I don't know. That's a question for me in the future, just because I'm unsure about it right now.
Yeah. Well, again, you're like just this gold mine of like wisdom. But that's really good advice about, being patient with yourself, and that it's okay to start something like hormone therapy. And if you're not feeling so good about it, or, having questions, or just need time to, not saying that you're doubting yourself, but just needing more time to think things through, that it's something you could stop and start back again. And right. I actually have a really good friend who did stopped for a few years and then went all the way through it, and surgery and everything as well. And I think that that's a real part of the journey experience, and that's why everyone is so unique and different as well. So we did get a question submitted, Matt. This is from Kathy. Kathy, thank you so much for your question. The question is, once you started T, did you notice changes in mood, increased aggression maybe, increased libido? Libido being, do you know libido? Not if, okay. And then how did that go? How did you feel about that? And then a follow-up question of like, are you now at that full dosage yet? Because you did talk about starting in smaller increments. And so, yeah, I think these are just kind of like, I think there are certain symptoms you want to see happening when you're starting T, but then maybe there are these other things that maybe sound like more side effects, but still a part of the T. So if you want to answer that.
So I did notice changes in mood. I was much less depressed, and I got a little nervous actually when I noticed that, because that's just what testosterone does. Even just cisgender men who take testosterone, it's meant to help with depression. So I thought maybe that was almost like, not because I was transitioning, but just because I had testosterone. And then when I really, I was on it for a long time, I realized, you know what, no, that's just because I'm happier, because now I feel manlier, and it's just awesome. It honestly just increased my mood, and it increased my self-confidence, and I felt a change in even my own body image changed a little bit. I felt like seeing myself changed more and more. I really started to love myself more. As far as aggression, I was really scared, because I'm a very salty person. So I was worried that when I started this, that I was going to actually fight people, not just say I would fight them. So I was worried about that, but I've not increased in aggression, I don't think. If anything, I think I've become a little bit more submissive, in a sense that I'm now less tempted to argue with people all the time. I'm less if I disagree with you, I kind of just roll my eyes and I leave the room. I don't really want to deal with it. It just sounds like extra calories I have to burn if I want to yell at you. I did increase libido, I think. I don't really know. That's not really something I paid much attention to, just because that wasn't something I did. But it's been good. I had a friend of mine who said that, they kind of went crazy after they started testosterone. They got really angry all the time. They were always trying to find people to meet up with because of their libido increase. But I haven't had that experience. I think maybe it's just because I'm a very chill person. I don't know. But I really do love it. I honestly think I've calmed down a lot. I used to be way uptight. It was such a bad joke about how stringent and about how very particular I had to be about things. And now I'm still that way, But now I think maybe just because I've gotten older and because I've learned to just kind of let things roll off my back, it doesn't really bother me anymore. We think that the dosage I'm at right now is the maintenance dose that I'll stay on. We're not sure yet though, just because the last blood work showed that I still have a low level of estrogen, which typically at this point it should be a level of 0 at estrogen. My testosterone's in a normal range, but with the estrogen kind of still being there, we're gonna see how this dose plays out. I have an appointment in June, and once I go to that appointment and they read the blood work, they're gonna determine whether this becomes the maintenance dose, and I only have to go like every, I think it's like 6 or 9 months instead of my every 3 months. So yeah.
And that's just to further reemphasize that symptoms, experiences, side effects, it's all going to depend on the person, right? Because we're all born with a certain kind of genetic, biological, hormonal, chromosomal makeup anyways that's going to impact how we experience something like hormone therapy. And then the same, well, I laugh because you are a really cool, chill person. So to hear, but and then also in terms of the dosages, that's going to depend on, gosh, I imagine everything from how tall you are to your body weight to the levels of hormones changing and fluctuating as you're on something like hormone therapy. So again, you're speaking to your experience, and it's not going to be everybody else's experiences. I don't think that there are any more questions, so maybe I will start helping us wrap up. For those of you who have tuned in maybe at the latter end of this conversation or didn't get a chance to catch the whole thing, again, this will be up on our YouTube channel. Give us about 24 to 48 hours, but then it will be up on youtube.com/gender spectrum. Again, please join us in our online community. It's called The Lounge, and that's at genderspectrum.org/lounge. We have over 1,000 members. In fact, I think we're reaching a little over 1,100 members maybe this week. So membership is growing all the time. We have groups for parents, groups for teens, groups around gender and art, groups around poetry. So groups are forming all the time. And if you're interested in starting your own group as well, please visit The Lounge. I think yes. And Kathy just wants to do a big shout out and thank you, Matt, for being so honest and open with us. And thank you from myself as well. Do you have any last words you want to share with everyone?
I did want to say, for anybody who's watching this who does want to start hormones, understand that you think it's another part of transitioning, and you sort of think it's just another step that every person takes, and it's part of your story as being trans. But I can't tell you how many times I almost thought I didn't want to take testosterone because I didn't know if it was for me, and I was worried that me taking this was just because I was being pressured by the trans community to do what was stereotypical and, you know, be trans. But that's not what it is. It's something that you do because you know in your heart and in your mind that this is what will help you to become the person that you want to be, and to really show people that you are who you are before and after testosterone. I've been the same person. It's just I have a deeper voice and I have some more hair on my legs. It's not anything like I decided I was going to transform into this brand new person. I didn't suddenly stop being my parents' daughter at any point. I just introduced them to their son. And I just wanted everybody to realize that it's like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Matt. This probably won't be the last we see of you. So again, The Lounge offers online programming broadcasts all the time, every month. Definitely check out our events calendar and tune in to find other upcoming programming. Our next one is actually, we have another youth council member on March 31st, 2016, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So tune in for that as we celebrate Trans Day of Visibility. So thank you again so much, Matt. This is really an honor. Thank you. Bye, everyone.